It's not like they have to practice. It's not like they have to make themselves go pick the guitar up and practice. That's not going to be somebody who's ever going to turn out to be a professional.
You think you know Linda Ronstadt? You think you know the voice that shook stadiums? The woman who rewrote the rules of country rock? The legend who conquered music without ever bending to anyone's expectations? But tonight, at 79 years old, Linda decides to do something no one, not even her closest fans, ever imagined. The studio lights glow softly against her silver hair. Her eyes, still bright, still sharp, still carrying that untamed fire from the 70s, lock onto the interviewer. He leans in, sensing something unusual, something dangerous, something history-making. And then Linda says the words that freeze the entire room. I'm ready to tell the truth. Not about awards, not about fame, not about the sold-out tours, the broken records, or the battles she fought in the industry. No. This time, Linda Ronstadt is ready to reveal the 7 legendary men, 7 iconic artists, who didn't just share her stage, but shared her bed. A sudden silence falls. The interviewer sits up straight. A camera operator instinctively zooms closer. Even the sound engineer stops breathing for a moment, because Linda Ronstadt, the woman who defined the musical era, is about to name names, real names, famous names, names that shaped American music and shaped the most intimate chapters of her life. Her lips curl into that familiar, mischievous smile, the smile millions of fans once fell in love with, as she whispers, "These are the 7 men who showed me that making music together can lead to making magic together." Before the interviewer can speak, Linda lifts a hand. "Let me start," she says, voice steady, fearless, almost playful, and with the calm confidence of a woman who has lived boldly, loved passionately, and regrets nothing. She prepares to reveal the first man on her list. Linda takes a slow breath, letting the anticipation hang in the room like a note held perfectly on pitch. Her eyes drift upward as if she's seeing not the studio, but California in the 1970s. Sunlight, cigarettes, tape reels, and magic. Then she speaks the first name, Jackson Browne. A soft murmur ripples across the set. Not shock, no, Jackson makes too much sense, but the kind of stunned recognition that feels like a puzzle piece snapping perfectly into place. Linda smiles, a tender, almost nostalgic smile. Jackson wasn't just a collaborator, she says slowly. He was a revelation. She leans back in her chair, letting the memories come alive again. She talks about those early sessions, late-night studios where inspiration arrived like lightning and young artists chased perfection with a kind of beautiful recklessness. Jackson Browne, with his wounded soul lyrics and golden voice, would sit beside her, guitar in hand, pouring raw emotion into every note. And Linda, sensitive, fiercely intuitive, felt herself drawn in, deeper and deeper. He didn't write songs, she says softly, he bled them. She remembers how he looked at her when he sang, those long, unwavering stares that felt like they pierced through every shell and settled somewhere near her very spirit. It wasn't flirtation, it was something quieter, deeper, almost sacred. And that intensity, that devotion to honesty, it spilled into everything he touched, even her. Being with Jackson, she confesses, felt like stepping inside a living poem. She laughs, shaking her head, as if reliving a moment both beautiful and a little dangerous. And those hands? The interviewer leans forward. Linda continues, careful, slow, savoring every word. Those long fingers that could coax magic out of a guitar could do the exact same thing to a woman. No one speaks. No one moves. The entire room is pinned to her storytelling, breath, held hostage by her honesty. Jackson loved like he wrote, gently, intensely, and with meaning in every touch. She pauses, letting the memory settle. Working with him changed me. Loving him changed me even more. Then she looks up at the interviewer and gives a sly, knowing grin. And that, she says, was only the beginning. Linda lets Jackson's memory fade gently into silence before shifting in her chair, her expression turning sharper, more dangerous, like a spark catching on dry wood. She takes a sip of water, sets the glass down, and without warning, a wicked grin sweeps across her face. The second one, she says, was Neil Young. The room's reaction is immediate, air sucked in, eyes widening, someone in the back muttering a stunned, "Oh wow," because Jackson Browne might have been expected. But Neil was an entirely different a storm. Linda's voice changes as she speaks his name. It drops lower, becomes rougher, as if even the memory carries voltage. Where Jackson was gentle intensity, she explains. Neil was pure electricity, raw, unfiltered, beautifully reckless. She remembers one night with a startling clarity, long recording hours, fuzzy minds from exhaustion, and whatever else drifted through these studios in the 70s. Neil's guitar still hummed in the corner, feedback echoing like a heartbeat out of rhythm. And then he looked at her. Neil had this way of staring straight through you, she says, touching her chest, right past the persona, the fame, the walls, down to the last unprotected part of who you were. She pauses, her smile widening. He never asked permission, not in music, not in life, not with me. The interviewer shifts in his seat, clearly enthralled. Linda continues. Being with Neil felt like stepping into a lightning storm with your arms wide open, terrifying and thrilling in a way you can't forget once you've felt it. He was unpredictable, one moment quiet and distant, the next burning with a wild, consuming passion. His voice, broken glass and honey, pulled her in. His hands, rough from endless guitars, knew exactly how to ignite fire. Neil made me feel dangerous, she admits, made me feel like I could become someone braver, someone who didn't care about rules or expectations. She laughs suddenly, the sound warm and knowing. And when the tension finally boiled over between us, she shakes her head with a half shiver, half smirk. It was explosive. Her eyes drift into the distance, reliving the moment. Neil brought that same fierce, unpredictable energy to intimacy that he brought to his music. It wasn't soft. It wasn't controlled. It was consuming. She breathes out slowly, like the memory still leaves heat behind. I never forgot it, and I never will. Linda's expression shifts again, this time deeper, more shadowed, as if she's pulling a memory from a part of her past that still vibrates with both thrill and sorrow. She inhales slowly. The third man, a pause, a small knowing smile, was Warren Zevon. The reaction is instant, a collective gasp louder than before, because while Jackson Browne made sense and Neil Young was a wild but logical leap, Warren Zevon, that name comes from an entirely different universe. Linda lets the room absorb it before continuing. Warren, she says softly, was dangerous in a way even Neil wasn't. Not artistic danger, not creative rebellion. Something darker, something existential. Her voice turns almost smoky as she describes him. Warren lived like every day might be his last, and he loved like every night was borrowed time. She remembers late-night hotel rooms, Dim lights, bottles half empty, and music sheets scattered across floors like confessions. Warren would sit on the edge of the bed, spinning stories that blurred the line between genius and madness. He'd quote poetry with a razor-sharp wit. He'd make jokes that were hilarious one moment and heartbreakingly tragic the next. And when he touched her, it felt like falling into a song that could break apart at any moment. Linda leans forward slightly, her voice dipping lower. Warren understood that the line between pleasure and pain is thinner than most people want to admit. The interviewer's eyes widen. Someone in the crew swallows hard. The room feels warmer. He was brilliant, she continues, and broken, and absolutely magnetic because of it. She taps a finger against her glass, tracing a silent rhythm that mirrors the chaos Warren carried everywhere he went. He had this way of making you feel like you were the only person who truly understood him. And when he focused all that intensity on you, she shakes her head slowly, almost reverently. Resisting him became impossible. She describes nights when he kissed her between punchlines, nights when he whispered fragments of lyrics that would never be recorded, nights that felt like the standing on the edge of a cliff while fireworks exploded across a midnight sky. Being with Warren, she says, was exhausting, exhilarating, and completely addictive. Her eyes soften with memory. He taught me that passion doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be safe. Sometimes, the most unforgettable love is the one that breaks all the rules. She lets the words settle, heavy and beautiful. Linda lets Warren Zevon's shadowy memory drift away like cigarette smoke in a dim hotel room. Her shoulders relax, her expression softens. This time not with danger, but with heat. Controlled heat, seductive heat. The kind that comes wrapped in sun-kissed confidence and Los Angeles swagger. She laughs quietly. The fourth one, she says, was Don Henley. No one is surprised, but everyone suddenly sits up straighter. Because Don wasn't chaos. He wasn't electricity. He wasn't destruction. Don Henley was mastery. Smooth, precise, intoxicating mastery. Linda's eyes glimmer. Don was California cool personified. She describes him in the way only someone who has seen a man both on stage and in bed can describe him. Denim and leather, a voice that could knock the wind out of angels, a presence so self-assured that he didn't walk into a room. He claimed it. He didn't brag, she explains. He didn't chase. He didn't need to. She recalls the nights when their studio sessions stretched into the early hours of the morning. Everyone pretended not to notice the tension simmering between them. The stolen glances, the lingering touches, the conversations that drifted from music into something more dangerous. Linda smiles, looking down at her hands. What made Don irresistible wasn't just the talent or the looks. It was his timing. He knew exactly when to lean in, exactly when to pull back, exactly when to let silence speak louder than any lyric. Seduction was an art form to him, she says softly. He treated it with the same precision he brought to his music. She chuckles as a memory flickers across her mind. At 2 a.m, he'd call, she recalls. Linda, I'm working on a song, could use your ear. But music was the last thing he wanted, and I knew it. Yet I went every time. The interviewer raises an eyebrow. Linda nods, unabashed. When Don Henley asks you to come over at 2 a.m., it's not a request. It's an invitation into another world. And what a world it was. She leans back, voice lowering. Don approached intimacy the same way he approached a recording session. with total focus, total command, and an instinct for what would make the moment unforgettable. He listened, he studied, he anticipated, he demanded and gave in equal measure. Being with Dawn felt like being produced by a master, she says, with a slow smile. Every moment deliberate, every touch intentional, every climax perfectly composed. She sighs, not out of sadness but remembrance. He didn't need chaos, he didn't need danger, he had confidence. And that was its own kind of wildfire. The room is silent, everyone is hanging on her every word, suspended between past and present, desire and nostalgia. Linda lifts her chin slightly. And that, she says, was only man number 4. For a moment, Linda lets Don Henley's memory glow in the air, warm, confident, polished, but then her eyes brighten with mischief, a spark that tells everyone the next name will flip the room upside down. She tilts her head, the corner of her mouth lifting. The 5th man, a pause, long enough to make everyone lean in, was Randy Newman. The interviewer almost chokes on his breath. Someone in the crew drops a pen. A stunned whisper snakes through the room. Randy Newman? The Randy Newman? Linda laughs. An unrestrained musical laugh that fills the entire space. I know what you're thinking, she says playfully. Randy? Really? But yes, really. She shifts forward, elbows resting on her knees, eyes glowing with admiration. Because let me tell you something most people never knew about Randy. Her voice softens. Behind that cynical wit, behind the sharp jokes, behind the satirical lyrics, stood a man with a deeper passion than almost anyone I'd ever met. Linda explains how their relationship began in the studio. Long afternoons of Randy crafting intricate piano arrangements while she watched, fascinated. He'd glance up from the keys with eyes that seemed to see everything and reveal nothing. Randy wasn't flashy, she says. He didn't posture or perform. His seduction started in the mind. And oh, what a dangerous place that was. He'd talk, she recalls, about music, art, history, humanity, always with this mix of humor and brilliance. Before you even realized it, you were falling in love with his mind. She smiles, a slow, thoughtful smile. And once your mind was his, your heart and body followed naturally. She goes on to describe his gentleness, surprising, almost disarming, paired with an intellectual intensity that made intimacy feel intentional, crafted, purposeful. Every touch from Randy, she says, felt like a line of poetry he hadn't written yet. The interviewer sits frozen, mesmerized. Linda continues, he approached intimacy the same way he approached songwriting, with detail, with care, with layers of meaning beneath the surface. She leans back, her voice dipping into something warmer, more private. He didn't need a stage or a spotlight. He seduced quietly, intentionally, until you woke up one day realizing he had rewritten your entire emotional landscape. Her eyes flicker with fondness. People never saw that side of him, but I did, and it was unforgettable. She folds her hands gently, finishing the thought. Sometimes the most powerful lovers, she says, are the ones the world least expects. The room is silent, half shocked, half enchanted, fully hooked. Linda's face softens again, this time with something almost reverent. Her voice lowers to a gentle hum, like she's about to speak the name of someone who occupied a very different, very intimate corner of her heart. She breathes in slowly. The 6th man, she says quietly, was J.D. Souther. A hush falls over the room. Not shock, not disbelief, but recognition. Like everyone understands they've reached a chapter written not in chaos or wildfire, but in candlelight. Linda's expression becomes tender, wistful. JD was poetry in motion. She describes him tall, lean, eyes that could cut through silence, a voice that could break a heart with a whisper. He didn't just write songs, she says softly. He channeled them, like they came from somewhere bigger than him. And in that same quiet, graceful way, he loved. Linda leans back, eyes drifting toward the ceiling as she revisits memories painted in moonlight and music. When JD looked at you, she says, the whole world disappeared. He made you feel like you were the only woman on earth who mattered. She recounts nights at his Malibu house, waves crashing against the rocks below, a guitar resting on his lap, his fingers dancing across the strings as though they were weaving spells. I'd watch his hands, she admits, and I'd imagine them moving the same way across my skin. She pauses, laughing quietly at herself. With JD, everything was slow, intentional, sacred. She continues, he never rushed desire. He let it build. He created a space for it. The interviewer is leaning so far forward, he looks like he might fall out of his chair. Linda continues, voice lowering like a secret being unfolded. He'd whisper lyrics against my neck, she says. Lines I'd never heard before, lines he'd written only for me. Her eyes soften, heavy with memory. Being with JD felt like being inside one of his ballads, every kiss a verse, every touch a harmony. She laughs gently. He was patient, he was gentle, but he also knew exactly how to build a crescendo, emotionally, musically, and physically. She places a hand against her chest. He made intimacy feel like a spiritual experience, like we were creating something holy together. A moment of silence follows, soft, respectful, almost sacred. JD was different, she says quietly. He touched my heart as deeply as he touched my body, and that kind of connection stays with you. The room remains perfectly still, absorbing every word. Then Linda exhales, preparing to reveal the final name, the one the world is most likely to remember. Linda adjusts herself in the chair, and something in her entire presence shifts. This isn't nostalgia now. This isn't playful confession. This is the memory that still burns. She takes a breath, long, steady, almost bracing herself. The seventh, she says, voice husky and unguarded, was Chris Christopherson. The room freezes. Not a sound, not a breath, not a whisper of movement. Everyone feels it instantly. This is the man who carved the deepest mark on her, the one who wasn't just a lover, but a seismic event in her life. Linda's whole expression softens, deepens, glows. Chris was different from all the rest. She begins, where they were talented. Chris was legendary, where they were charming. Chris was magnetic, where they were passionate. Chris was absolutely consuming. She explains how they met at the height of the outlaw country movement, two artists burning hot in their respective worlds, two storms recognizing each other instantly. The attraction was immediate, she says, and mutual. Chris wasn't just handsome. He wasn't just charismatic. He wasn't just brilliant. He was alive in a way most people never get to be. A Rhodes Scholar who became a janitor, a soldier who became a poet, a songwriter who rewrote the rules of an entire genre, a rebel who lived by his own code and paid the price without flinching. Linda looks down, smiling softly. That kind of man, you don't forget. She describes watching him perform night after night, feeling that raw animal magnetism radiating from the stage like heat from a wildfire. Even other performers would stop and watch him, drawn in by something primal, something almost mythic And off stage, he was just as intense, she whispers, quietly powerful, deeply thoughtful, a philosopher wrapped in denim and danger. He'd quote Shakespeare between shots of whiskey, talk about life like he had lived 100 of them, write love like he invented the emotion. Chris never held anything back, she says. Not in his music, not in his beliefs, and definitely not in bed. Her voice grows softer, more intimate. When he touched you, when he looked at you with those eyes, you felt like he was giving you his whole soul. She recalls nights in hotel rooms after concerts, his guitar resting beside him, his voice rough and tender as he sang songs he never recorded, songs meant only for the moment and for her. Then the guitar would fall silent and everything else would ignite. Being with Chris, she continues, was like stepping into a tornado of pure feeling, exhilarating, exhausting, addictive. He challenged her, inspired her, pushed her to be braver, more honest, more alive. Our connection wasn't just physical, she says. It was emotional, spiritual, elemental. She pauses. Her hands rest gently together. Chris was the one who taught me that passion doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. The studio was silent, captured, humbled, transformed. Then Linda sits up straighter, lifting her chin with quiet pride. 7 names, she says. 7 men who shaped my life, my music, my heart. She smiles, soft, mischievous, unforgettable. If you take anything from this, let it be that passion never dies with age. It only becomes clearer. The interviewer sits speechless. The crew remains frozen. And Linda Ronstadt, 79 years old, fearless as ever, finishes